Hi, guys. Welcome to November and chapter 12. This is Go West, Young People. It's actually Go West, Young Man, but I updated it for the 21st century. And this is about migration to the West before the Civil War. And that's critical because there is a difference between pre-Civil War and post-Civil War migration. This picture is a classic example of pre-Civil War migration. Those are Conestoga wagons, all right? So in order to start this westward migration, this started as early as the purchase of Louisiana in 1804. And over the next 20 to 25 years, the main people who migrated west of the Mississippi River were what were known as mountain men, okay? Most of them were fur trappers, as you can see that gentleman on the left. Some of them, though, were actually considered to be trailblazers, like Kit Carson. In the spirit of Miss Shacked, I put my vacation photos on there, and that is Kit Carson's grave somewhere in northern New Mexico. I can't even remember where, to be honest with you. But these guys were important because basically they opened up, quote unquote, highways to the West, okay? And interestingly enough, most of the major highway systems in the country today, all right, so Interstate 80, I-94, I-90, famous Route 66, all actually follow the old trails that the mountain men used. The reason for this is they needed to get through the Rocky Mountains. Okay, the Rocky Mountains is a really important barrier to the west. And what's important is most people moving to the west at this time were going to the far west, out here in Washington, Oregon, and California. They were not going into the center of the country. That area will fill in after the Civil War. The exception in this case was Denver and Salt Lake City. All right, the most famous of these trails was the Oregon Trail, but you could use any of these trails. The typical average was about 15 miles a day. The key was when they left Independence, Missouri, they had to get through the Rocky Mountains before October. If they didn't get through the Rocky Mountains before October and they got caught in the Rockies in the winter, that could be devastating or death. The Donner Party, which is infamous for not making it through the Rockies, submitted basically to cannibalism to survive. But this was a really hard trip, guys, and it was a very much of a middle-class trip. To build out a Conestoga wagon cost about $3,000, which would have been a lot of money at that time. Most of these people were moving for the rich farmland in the Willamette Valley. Some of them went down into Northern California where the farmland was also good. And most of these people walked. They did not ride on those wagons. The wagons were for their goods. This was a very hard trip to make, but obviously the payoff at the end was worth it or people would not have done it. However, what really changed everything was there's gold in Demdar Hills, all right? In 1848 at Sutter Mill, just north of San Francisco, gold was discovered, and that led to the 1849 gold rush, or the 49ers. If you've ever wondered why the San Francisco 49ers had their name, that is the reason. And that led to a massive gold rush. Now, most individuals did not get rich from this gold rush. Mostly corporate concerns were the ones that were able to mine enough gold to become wealthy. However, that did not stop people from moving out of there, and this was the mining frontier. This increased the population of California tremendously and other places like Denver. And most importantly, a unknown immigration note, 33% of all the miners were from China. So there was a large amount of Chinese migration through Angel Island in San Francisco at this time. And then finally, if you move out there, towns need to be made. A lot of the towns reflected what people had left behind in the East, but more importantly, cities, okay? And San Francisco became the first most important city because of the 1849 gold rush. However, Salt Lake City was along the way to California, and so they made quite a name for themselves, not only because the Mormons who settled there, but they were able to sell goods to the people who were traveling through. And then finally, Denver became another gold and silver rush city in Colorado, one of the few on this side of the Rockies to settle prior to the Civil War. All right, so you've got farmers, miners, you've got urban development west of the Mississippi, and you also had the original mountain men. All right, these are the new frontiers prior to the Civil War. Please note, prior to the Civil War, there are no, I repeat, there are no railroads running to the west. The Transcontinental Railroad will not be completed until just after the end of the Civil War. So this was walking and Conestoga wagons were the main way. The other way some people got to San Francisco was by steamship, and that was to go around South America or to go through Nicaragua by steamship and up the other coast. All right, thanks, guys.